But you don't have to own property to make money on the Airbnb platform.
Okay.
I do workshops for students where I teach them how to go about making money on Airbnb without owning any property.
Okay guys, it's Aslam Du Toit from the 9 to 5 Millionaire. Hope you guys are doing great. Today we've got an awesome video for you. We're going to be speaking to a good friend of mine, Karen Fraser, and she's become let's just say she's become an expert at building a business on Airbnb and really built an empire on Airbnb, financial freedom, and that's what we're all about. Looking for ways to build an income without having a traditional business. Karen, thanks for coming to the interview or the meeting today. Really nice, having you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So basically, in terms of the 9 to 5 Millionaire, we're all about showing you ideas that you could possibly look at if you're looking at getting into a business that's non-traditional, and I call it mobilepreneurship. So it's a business that you can run from your phone. I came across Karen's page and some of her information, and I was stunned when I heard what she'd done, with Airbnb. It's still very uncommon, very unknown, very untapped in the South African market, and I think there are huge opportunities, within the segment. And Karen has really become the go-to person in the country when it comes to educating people on how to get into this industry, how to make it profitable, most importantly. And when she shared her story with me a few days ago, what stood out to me was she said she saw other people doing Airbnb and only making something like 26,000 Rand a month. Okay, and she thought, but why is this happening? Because she was making a lot more. And what that told me was she had found a system to maximize the profit potential on this platform. So without further ado, I'm going to get into how to do this business, how to get into it, what are some of the pitfalls, what are some of the advantages, and things that you need to know before you get into this industry. Karen, I think maybe to start off, maybe tell us your story, tell us a little bit about you.
You want to know how I got started?
Well, let's go a little bit before that. Tell us about who Karen is, what you've done in the past and how it led you to finding Airbnb as a business opportunity.
Okay, so my background is in property. I have been in the property industry, but more specifically the shopping center industry for many years, shopping center management, and also worked for one of the big retailers in the country in their property department. And then I went on my own and I started my own consulting business, consulting to shopping center landlords and to retailers on their property needs. And it was during that time when I was consulting for a property developer in Mozambique, when I decided I'm working in Mozambique now, I need to learn to speak Portuguese.
Sure.
So I took a Portuguese language class or classes, and there was a lady in my classes who Airbnb'd the rooms in her apartment where she lived.
Right.
And I said to her, what's Airbnb about? I'd never heard of it. This was in 2013.
Okay.
She told me about Airbnb, and I thought, well, I have an empty room in my house. Let me put it on Airbnb and see what happens. And it just snowballed from there. For the first, I would say, 2 to 3 years, Airbnb was very unknown in South Africa. So it was only international travelers that came through and booked my rooms in my house, or my one room at that stage.
Okay, awesome. So it was very simple to get started there. I mean, you kind of just heard the opportunity and you're like, I'm just going to try.
That's exactly what I did. And it was a very slow start. From the time that I listed my room on Airbnb until the first guest arrived was 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Nowadays, after 6 years of doing this, because I started at the end of 2013, so it's about six and a bit years, the most recent listing that I added to my portfolio, from the minute I booked it until I had my first booking confirmation was only 12 hours.
Wow.
And that's because I have, in the last 6 years, learned all the secret, I've got all the secret sauce here, and I know how to optimize my listing for absolute maximum benefit.
Okay. I think maybe let's just rewind back, you know, just to give the viewers perspective. Some people might be sitting watching this video thinking, what is Airbnb? The same way you were thinking back in 2013. Because I recently did a video, or some time ago I did a video, and when I spoke to people about Airbnb, I spoke on the assumption that people knew what this thing was. And they were like, what's that? Okay, so maybe if you can just touch on what Airbnb is, so you know, for the viewer who's never heard of it before.
Okay, so Airbnb is a booking platform, and there are many other booking platforms out there where you can advertise the space in your house, whether it be your spare room or your whole house or your property at the coast or your garden cottage or your apartment where the tenant has moved out after he hasn't paid you rent for 3 or 6 months.
Sure.
You can list any of that space. Even if you have a guest house or a hotel, you can list the rooms on Airbnb.
Okay.
They have more rooms worldwide than the largest hotel group, and the largest hotel group has 1 million rooms worldwide.
Wow. And they own none of these rooms, of course.
They own none of these rooms.
Okay. So guys, this is, to me, this is the beauty of technology, and this is why I've gone on this crusade, you know, to share with people these sorts of opportunities, because I come from a property background myself. And if I wanted to get a rental of say 6,000 Rand a month, I would probably have to buy a property for say 700,000-800,000 Rand. I need to qualify for credit. I need to possibly have the capital to pay for the bond cost, the deposit, and all of that. How much does it cost to get onto Airbnb?
You can register on Airbnb for free. It doesn't cost you anything. It will only start costing you once you get bookings.
Okay.
And once you get a booking, Airbnb will collect the money from the guest. So the guest will pay Airbnb. And then the day after the guest arrives, Airbnb will pay you less their 3% collection fee.
Awesome. So it sounds like you don't have any tenant issues in your life.
Not rental collection issues whatsoever. Airbnb takes care of all of it.
Okay. And do you need to evict anyone if no, someone, well, they can't not pay you, right? Because they pay you up front.
They pay up front.
Okay. All right. So let's just make people understand. So we're going to take this back to the beginning. Someone goes onto the Airbnb website, I'm assuming. They open an account, they put in their detail, they are now listed, right? So how do you now go about getting the stock? Like, what are some of the ways people can get stock? Because obviously one way, like you said, is you might have an empty room in your home. Okay, is that how most people would typically start?
Most people start like that, but you don't have to own property to make money on the Airbnb platform.
Okay.
I do workshops for students where I teach them how to go about making money on Airbnb without owning any property.
Right. That's
You
awesome.
I'm renting my neighbor's property and I'm Airbnb-ing that. You can manage somebody else's Airbnb property and take a commission for managing that property for them. Or you can just put your own property on Airbnb. There's just so many different options and ways to use the Airbnb platform to make money.
Awesome, awesome. And I know that with Airbnb, obviously these places need to be furnished. Is there typically a very big cost, you know, to getting it furnished? You know, if you've got a room, maybe, is there a lot of money you need to spend on that?
There are some essentials that you want to put into a room, and you need to ask yourself, if you were the guest, what would you like to see? And what comforts would you like? And you can decorate your room as basic or as fancy as you want. The area that you are situated in is pretty much going to determine what that market wants. You know, if you're going to rent a beachside property in Mozambique that's far away from everything, maybe you can get away with the basics. When you have an apartment in Hurlingham or Sandton, maybe you're going to go for the 600 thread Egyptian cotton.
Right.
So it really depends on where you are situated and how much you charge. The more you charge, the more the guest is going to expect to get.
Sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And when you got into this back in 2013, were there any educational places you could go to learn? Did you first go and get the education, then start, or was it just like, I'm just going to start?
I wish there was education available at that time, but it was trial and error.
Okay.
So I just built my knowledge and my expertise as things happened. Specifically when it comes to Airbnb hosting. Over the years I've done business courses. I found that I had to educate myself because this was an industry that's totally new to me. I've never been in hospitality before. Yes, property, but this is not really strictly property. It's property with a bit of a hospitality element to it. And they say when you are trying to do something new, when you're entering a new market that you're not familiar with, the success recipe is to read at least 3 books on the topic.
Okay.
Now there aren't many books to read on Airbnb, and I found there's one business book in particular. If any of the viewers want to get it, I really recommend it. It's called The Upstarts by Brad Stone.
Okay, The Upstarts by Brad Stone. So I will put a caption at the bottom just to make sure that you know exactly which book that is, and the author
was Brad Stone.
Brad Stone. Okay.
And he talks about both Uber and Airbnb and how the personalities of those two CEOs differ so vastly, and the obstacles that they had to overcome to get the business to where it is today, so that you and I have the opportunities on those platforms that we do have today. And then there are many podcasts and other courses that you can take. You said earlier that I looked at how much the average host in South Africa earns every year, and I had a look at that and I thought, well, why am I making so much more? And spoke to friends, and then I was convinced by a friend to start a workshop where I teach people how they can earn as much as I'm earning, if not more, and build entire businesses out of this. So yes, now there is local education available.
Sure. And tell me, have any of your students surpassed the amount of listings that you have? I know you mentioned to me a few days ago that you've got between 19 to 20 listings.
Yes.
Have you had students that have gone that far, that have really taken it as a serious business?
I don't get involved in how much they're earning and how many listings they have, but for all my students I have a closed Facebook group.
Okay.
And that's where they share their successes, and that's where they ask for advice on certain things. And so it's this really incredible community of people who are so willing to share information freely. And it's on that platform that I get to know who's doing what, and there are just so many success stories. There are some of my students who don't own any property, but they've built an entire business out of Airbnb and using other people's property to make money on the Airbnb platform. And it's so encouraging to learn that, or to hear that. And some of them come to me and say, I did Airbnb before I did your workshop. I was earning 2,000 Rand a month before I did your workshop. It's now 4 months later and I've increased it 5-fold.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And look, I know that you give a lot of training locally in South Africa. I know we're talking about South Africa, and there's still so much of potential in the country, to grow this. But if you had to take an Africa view, do you believe there's as much potential in the rest of the continent?
There's huge potential in the rest of Africa. I think the rest of Africa is still very untapped. If I just look at the number of listings in other countries compared to the South African market, and the South African market is not big at all. But yes, there's huge potential.
Okay. I have seen people on the internet speak about managing listings in other countries. Knowing what you know now, do you think that's something you would take a chance on, or do you prefer managing listings that are very local and close to where you are?
Oh, I teach my students how to manage their properties from afar.
Okay.
Some of them have properties in Mozambique and they reside in Johannesburg.
Nice.
They reside in Johannesburg and they have properties in Knysna or Cape Town. Or they reside in South Africa and they have properties in Spain, Portugal and India.
Nice.
And I teach them how to manage those properties on Airbnb even if they're not there. Because the way that I have set myself up, I can be visiting my folks in Jeffreys Bay today and sit on the beach and get an inquiry from somebody booking in tomorrow, and I don't have to be on the next flight back to hand over keys. And that's what's so great about the new economy thinking, because that's the sphere that we are operating in.
Okay. And in terms of, and I'm kind of rewinding back in terms of cost, is there any special equipment that someone needs, to get into this Airbnb business, or is a cell phone sufficient?
Cell phone is 100% sufficient to get started.
Okay guys, so I'm just going to grab mine. This is why I say, it's mobilepreneurship. The fact that you only need a cell phone and you can create a full-time income. I just find that mind-boggling because, Karen and I both come from a property background, and if you wanted to get access to the cash flow that she's generating in the traditional property space, a lot of people, in fact just last night, I was doing a training and someone asked me a question. He said, I have land and I want to build several 50 square meter houses on this land. How do I start? Where do I get the funding? It's so difficult to raise funding doing that sort of traditional property development. You've got to get a bond from the bank. Your credit worthiness needs to stack up. And I'm assuming here when you opened your Airbnb business, you didn't need a credit check, right?
Nothing whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Okay, and were you doing this part-time or full-time or?
I was doing it part-time, and I'm still doing it part-time. And when I do my workshops, I teach my students how to do this part-time so that it doesn't take up your entire day. You don't have to give up your fixed income job immediately.
Okay.
You can build this until you're ready to let it go.
Okay. I want to touch on that. I think that's something that's very important. Financial freedom is a topic that a lot of people have become obsessed with. And unfortunately, we live in a sort of a microwave society, so people want quick results. Can we firstly speak about, how many hours do you think someone would need to dedicate in a week? So I'm talking to the professional that has a job now, and they want to just earn an extra 5 or 10,000 rand a month, on the side. But then there's the other person that's saying, I would actually like to retire in 3 months and do this full time. Can you speak to those two people?
Those two poles, yes. So let me give you an example. Let's say you are going to have 3 guests a month, and each guest stays in your listing for a week at a time. That means you have 3 weeks where the property is occupied or the room is occupied, and let's say 1 week is vacant. How much time, you want to know how much time are you going to spend on each guest? So let me tell you. The guest is going to send you an inquiry on Airbnb and say, Aslam, love your place, I'm coming for business and need to stay a week. And you're going to type him a reply and say, that's wonderful, what time can I expect you to arrive? Let's say you type really slowly and it takes you 15 minutes to have a conversation with this guest. He comes, he settles in, he does his own thing. You don't have to provide meals. You can if you want, but I don't. If I have to cook for my guests, they will die.
So you don't need to be a chef?
No, not at all. And then let's say at the end of their stay, you do the cleaning of that room yourself. You take the sheets off, you put it in the machine, you tidy it up and you prepare it for the next guest. And let's say it takes you half an hour to do that. And then you send another message and you type really slowly, takes you 15 minutes online to say to this guest, it was wonderful having you, safe travels, hope to host you again. Now you've spent an hour on that guest, and you do that 3 times a month. That's 3 hours. And you could potentially, depending on where your property is situated, you could make easily 6,000 rand a month.
Wow.
On that room. So calculate that as a rate per hour. I have attorneys who come to me and say, I do conveyancing, do you know how many hours I work and I don't earn your hourly rate?
Okay, so guys, that's like highly important. Think about a doctor and a lawyer. We all look up to those professions, but the fact that they need to be in their surgeries or in consultation with clients for maybe 5, 7, 8 hours a day, and what you're talking about, 3 hours?
3 hours for 3 guests in that particular example.
Okay, 3 hours, guys. Do you have 3 hours? That's for someone doing it part-time. So that's to earn an extra 6,000 a month. So let's go to the other side of the sphere where the person is saying, well, I'm willing to dedicate more time. I'm willing to go a bit more aggressive, and I want to make full-time income. And because a lot of people ask me, I need to make a lot of money in 3 months' time. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Firstly, it's going to take commitment, it's going to take time, you need to learn. But I just want to get an idea for the viewer what your belief is for that person to get to a full-time income if they have to really put their heads down and work on it.
So it depends on how you're going to set yourself up. And I always say to my students, decide right from the start. Are you going to do this just for the one room in your house? You are nearing retirement and you want something just to supplement your retirement income? Or are you going to build this into a 20 or 50 or 100 listing operation? So start from your very first listing as if you have 20 or 50 or 100 listings, whatever your target is. And don't do anything now that will be impossible for you to do when you have 50 or 100 listings. Okay. Let me take my mom, for example. It has taken me years to convince my mom to go onto Airbnb. She lives in Aston Bay. Do you know where Aston Bay is?
No.
It is a tiny little community about 4 kilometers outside of Jeffreys Bay.
Okay.
And you think, how much money can you make in Aston Bay on Airbnb? So yes, that area is seasonal. You make money over December, Easter, June, July when there's the big international surfing competition, then maybe a little bit in October again. And my mom phoned me in November one evening at 11 o'clock at night and she said, big crisis, I'm at the hospital with your dad, think he had a heart attack, but the test results will come out in an hour and then we'll know. So there I was sitting in bed, waiting, wondering what do I do in the next hour while I'm waiting to get the news. And just the week before, I'd asked my dad to send me photographs of the house because I'd said to my mom, just do Airbnb. And she was very hesitant and she said, no, but we first have to do the bathroom and we first have to do this. And I said to my dad, just send me the pictures. He sent it to me, and while I was sitting in bed, I thought, let me just put it on Airbnb. She hasn't said yes yet, but let me just do it. I did her listings on Airbnb. Long story short, my dad's fine, it wasn't a heart attack. 12 hours after I listed, by lunchtime the next day, I had my first 2 confirmed bookings and I made my mom 2,500 Rand in 12 hours.
2,500 Rand in 2 hours. Guys, I can tell you now, at my last job, I wasn't earning that. Okay, over a 12-hour period.
It gets better. Aston Bay. Who knows where Aston Bay is? From the 13th of December when the first guest arrived until the 4th of January when the last one left, my mom's listings made 14,267 Rand on Airbnb.
I'm really interested in the next part of this. So that's phenomenal income.
So sorry, what I was trying to explain, I say to my students, don't do anything for one listing that you can't do for 50 or 100 listings. My mom she has revolutionized Airbnb. When the guest arrives, they get a little face cloth with their name embroidered on it.
Wow.
And wrapped in that towel is a chocolate and some biscuits. And when they leave, they get a packet of biscuits with a note that says thank you. You can do that when you're renting out the rooms in your house. You can't do that when you have 50 or 100.
Okay. So we had a bit of a cut, but we're back now. Okay, so the whole question that I was asking Karen is, you know, if someone wanted to go full-time with this, they wanted to make full-time income, and she explained how, you know, by simply just taking action, she was able to make a mom, what was it, 14,000 rand?
14,267 rand.
Okay, that's phenomenal. Okay, and what is the general overhead in terms of the income that you would make? You know, in a traditional business, because a lot of people consider traditional businesses, and maybe some of them will be a 20% margin or 10% margin because of the high cost of starting it. What is the overhead in this sort of business?
Your overheads are going to be, if you don't already have a bed and linen and towels, you're going to have that initial capital outlay. And then you're going to have the electricity and the water and the cleaning, which you would have in your primary residence if you're going to rent out a room. You're going to have that anyway, but it will increase slightly once you rent out your room.
Okay. So, I mean, those are all more once-off costs because you're going to reuse those.
Yes.
But I mean, once you've got all the stuff that you need, you know, the furniture and that sort of thing, I mean, there isn't any major running continuous overhead.
No, it's going to be your utilities and your cleaning. That's it.
Okay, all right. You mentioned the cleaning, like you went into that, and I know some people have asked me, so am I going to have to go and do all the cleaning when people leave? So what is your recommendation on that? Can people outsource that sort of thing?
Oh, you can easily outsource it. You can do it yourself in the beginning if you can and you have the time. What I do in my properties is I say to my guests, the cleaning lady, this is her name, she comes on Mondays and Thursdays, and you clean as you go the rest of the time. And then when they leave, she prepares the room, or you can outsource those services. There are apps these days where you can order a cleaner the way that you order an Uber.
Wow.
And you can say, I want Sophie to arrive tomorrow at 8 a.m. and I want her to do the following duties. And 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, there's the doorbell, there's Sophie, and she does what she needs to do, and off she goes.
Okay. You know, you mentioned something now. If the property is located further off, do you make use of access cards on any of your properties where you don't have, it's not in your own home?
There are so many different ways that you can arrange that.
Okay.
You can have cards, you can have lock boxes, you can have neighbors.
Okay.
But yes, I give you all those options. There are super expensive, super convenient options, and then there are super cheap options and everything in between. So during my workshops, I give my students all those options and they choose whatever suits them.
Whichever suits them.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Tell me, in terms of the opportunities that you see within this industry, especially in South Africa, still being in its infancy, you're the only person I know of that's doing training. You know, where do you see opportunities in this market?
There is such a huge market and ancillary services that South Africa has not even touched yet. If you look at the services, the ancillary services that are available in a lot of overseas countries, I mean the whole of Europe and the Americas, there are people who have built entire businesses servicing the short-term rental market, whether it be Airbnb or Booking.com or whichever platform you choose, from companies that only do welcome packs for guests. So that if that's what you do and that's what you give your guests, you don't have to do it yourself, you just order it. Companies who only supply linen and do the cleaning, that's all they do, and it's a service to the short-term rental market. Companies that do maintenance for short-term rentals. And there's a huge untapped market in South Africa as far as those ancillary services are concerned.
Okay, awesome. And then in terms of, do you believe there's a sweet spot? I know on Airbnb how you charge people is per night. So it could be $100 a night, it could be $50, $10 or 100 rand if you want to speak South African currency. But we do have people that live in other countries, so I tend to refer to dollars as well. But when you look at from all the students you've had, your own experience, do you believe there's a sort of a sweet spot in terms of rate per night where there's more demand, or is it just dependent on area? How do you view that?
I think beauty of Airbnb is it makes accommodation so accessible and affordable for such a wide variety of people. From the budget traveler to the 5-star one. You can get accommodation, you can get camping for 50 Rand a night, or you can get 5-star. Even if you are a hotel or a guest house, you can advertise your rooms on Airbnb. And then you can have all the price ranges in between. So I don't think there's particularly a sweet spot in terms of pricing, but there's definitely a sweet spot for the area that you are in.
Okay.
Because my students, they all come from various areas, and I help them to choose the rental that's going to be the sweet spot for that area that they are in.
So there's no limitation. I mean, some people could be watching this, maybe they in a township, others might be in a suburb.
Yes.
Are you saying that there's opportunities across
across the board?
Okay.
You can provide a basic bed in a rural area for those who are adventurous and want to go out into the countryside. I mean, the types of accommodation are just endless. You can rent any type of accommodation on Airbnb, from a tent to a cave, to a tree house, to a room in somebody's house, to an island, to a boat.
Wow.
And all the other, everything in between.
I love that flexibility. I love the flexibility. Tell me, in terms of the flow of funds, so obviously you're saying that Airbnb collects the money. Can you just elaborate on that? Some people might be asking, okay, the guest comes, they've made a payment. How does that whole thing work? How do you access your money? Does it get paid into your bank account?
It's probably the main reason why I love Airbnb above any other booking platform, is Airbnb will collect the money from the guest. So unlike the traditional rentals, and you and I have had the traditional tenants signing a 1-year lease, everything goes well for the first 3 or 4 months, and then the tenant loses his job and he can't pay you your rental, and then you have to struggle to do that rental collection. Airbnb works totally differently. They collect the money from the guest. The day after the guest arrives, Airbnb will pay you into your bank account less their 3% commission.
Guys, 3%. I want you to understand, and let me contextualize this for you. In the normal rental market, a property agent will typically charge you anywhere between 7 to 10%.
Quite easily, yes.
Of your rental. And speaking about that rental that you can achieve on a property, would you say that you have a better chance of maximizing a higher turnover on the property as opposed to doing it a conventional rental? I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but if you were able to say get 10,000 Rand a month on that unit, do you think that going the Airbnb route allows you to maximize that rental amount?
I'll give you an example of one of my properties. It is a 3-bedroom apartment in a sectional title complex. My neighbor, who has the exact same property, size, number of bedrooms, everything, he gets about 11,000 Rand a month, the traditional old economy thinking way. With my Airbnb, I earn in the region of 17,000 Rand a month.
Wow, that's amazing. That just shows you the potential of, and you didn't have to lay out all the capital you did, I'm assuming. Is it a unit you own, or
it's
is it
a
one
unit that I own, so I had to put in the furniture.
Okay.
And I went very fancy on it because I love decorating, and I always overspend.
Right.
So I put in a bit more money than what I should have, and it took me less than 12 months to pay back the furniture.
Wow. Yeah, that's very amazing, and that's something that really attracts me to understanding this business opportunity a lot more, because I still have property of my own, and I see opportunities all around. And whenever I see properties these days, I'm not thinking in the sense of how do I acquire this, because more often than not banks don't give you the funding, or there's some issue. Now it's more, how can I access cash flow from this property without laying out the capital? Okay, so it's just that new economy thinking, and improving your cash flow without the outlay. Karen, I think maybe before we get to the 3 to 5 tips of what it will take to be successful in this business, can you give us some examples? Firstly, number one, of some success stories of real people that have come through your courses, you know, where they started, where they are now, and then on the last one, how it's affected your lifestyle, things that you're able to do that you were not able to do before. If you can just touch on those two things.
Okay. If you have a look at my Facebook page, you'll see go to Facebook and search for Smart Stay programs. You'll see a few videos there of success stories of people who have done my workshop. Some of them were brand new to the Airbnb industry, never done Airbnb, never even used Airbnb to travel. Others started off, tried to do hosting and weren't that successful, and then in those success stories they tell you what they did, how much they earned before they did my course and how much they're earning now. And some of them have expanded their portfolios and they now have 3 properties, or they've expanded now their listings from 1 to 2 and they're thinking of the 3rd one. So it's very encouraging and inspiring to see how people are grabbing this opportunity and just making the most of it.
Okay, that's awesome. And do you find that there is more interest in doing this? Is there like a regional interest, or are you finding it across the country?
I started off focusing on Johannesburg with these workshops, and then I branched out to Pretoria, and I've been getting a lot of inquiries from all over the country. So at the end of last year I launched Cape Town, and in a few months time I'll be expanding to George and Knysna. But I get inquiries from everywhere.
Okay, that's phenomenal. It's growing.
So the next step, because my workshops are very hands-on. It's not you sitting watching a seminar or a webinar online. You come to the workshop with your laptop, I give you some homework to do, and then I help you to optimize your listing from start to finish. So I will walk behind the students the whole day to check and make sure that they have clicked in the right place and they've inputted the right information in the various fields. So by the time that they leave, they have a business. I help them to build a business in a day. They are able to receive guests and make money at the end of that day.
That's so you don't need to go and study for 5 years before you start, right?
No, and I'm there in person and I help you and I make sure that everything is 100% before you leave. Before you leave, I make sure that you can receive guests from the minute you walk out the door.
Okay, and then the last part, just touching on the lifestyle factor.
Yes.
You know, I'm all about building lifestyle businesses. A few years ago, I was in traditional business franchises, and the thing that I didn't like about it was it took away a lot of lifestyle privileges. You know, I couldn't travel freely. You know, I'm all about thinking with the end in mind now, and thinking that if I go into this sort of business model, is it going to take time away from me to do the things that I love doing, which is traveling, spending time with family? Can you just highlight the privileges and advantages that this sort of business has given to your own life?
Sure. I think just from the social aspect, I have made so many friends from all over the world. There are so many countries that I can travel to today and go and visit friends that I have met through Airbnb, people who have stayed with me. And that in itself, you know, I'm a travel junkie. And the next best thing to traveling yourself is hosting international travelers or any traveler in your house. So from a lifestyle point of view, it's opened up doors for me that would never have opened before. And from an income point of view, which also impacts on your lifestyle, I can make money, I can sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow morning, and there's a message from Airbnb to say, congratulations, Aslam is booked with you arriving on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
So when it comes to the lifestyle, it hasn't reduced or detracted from my life, it's added to it.
Okay, awesome. I'm assuming you travel a lot more now.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and we've come to the end of the interview. I will post a link where you can get some more information if this is something that appeals to you. But what I'd like you to just cover very briefly is, if someone is looking at going into this business, you've already mentioned a book that they can read, which is Upstart, which you spoke about. But are there any other tips you can give someone who's looking at this as a potential opportunity? You know, what would be your best advice to that person?
I'm going to reduce it to one golden tip, because I like to keep life simple. And I teach my students, keep it simple. Don't get complicated now with one listing, because you're going to have to sustain that when it gets to 20 or 30 or 50 listings. So keep it simple. So I'm going to reduce it to one golden tip. Just get started. I mean, how many success stories have you read? I'm sure you've
tons
and tons of them. How many of those success stories started with, I waited until I had enough money, or I waited until I had money to renovate the bathroom? None of those. Just get started. What is the worst thing that can happen? You know, when I started this in 2013, everybody except my mom was very skeptical. My mom said, "Oh, that sounds like a fabulous idea," and she got excited. The rest of my friends and family said, "What is she up to now? What is she getting herself into?" And you're going to get the naysayers. You're going to get the people. Listen to those who have done it and been successful. I had the friends who said, "What? You opening your home to people you don't know? Are you crazy? What if he's this and what if he's that?" And I just said to them, "Well, what if they are not?" And look what has happened in 6 years. If I had listened to them, just get started.
Okay, awesome.
Just do it and come and do the course if you want, and if you don't want, just get started and learn along the way.
Maybe just to end off, you obviously have these free seminars. Can you tell us, obviously today is the 29th of January 2020. If you're watching this video further down the line on the YouTube channel, on Facebook, but for people watching, you know, right now, when do your next seminars happen? Where do they happen?
So I do free presentations once a month, or twice a month, sorry, and that's where you can come and listen to an introduction on Airbnb and the business model and how I've made it work for me, where I give you really practical examples, and I share some of those secrets that I've accumulated in the last 6 years. And then after that presentation, if you want to take it seriously and you think this is something you really want to do, and you want to earn serious money from it, you can then decide to enroll for a workshop. So my free presentations, the next ones are set for the end of Feb, 26th and 27th. They'll be happening in Midrand and Randburg. You can go onto my Facebook page, Smart Stay Programs, and have a look at the future events there, because after Feb, there will also be in Pretoria, Boksburg, Knysna, George, Stellenbosch, Durbanville, and look for the one that's in your area.
Awesome, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed doing the interview. I learned a lot, and I can tell you now, we definitely are going to be attending. You'll be seeing me in one of your classes. I'm very intrigued because it's all about mobilepreneurship, like I say. If you enjoyed this video, you know, drop a comment below, share it with a friend. If you believe that this is the opportunity for you, definitely check out Karen's page. It's called Smart Stay Program.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll also put that into a caption. I'll put the link at the bottom of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. It was the 9 to 5 Millionaire, showing you another way that you can earn an additional income from your cell phone. Karen, thanks so much. It was awesome.
It was great. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Cool.